get. And a large chunk of people, me and my friends included, assumed that we'd get Kwannon because she's kind of the quintessential version of Psylocke. And then we didn't. So let's talk about who we did get. Hi, my name is Riddler, wrong universe, I know, and this is Marvel Rivals Season 1 character profile for Psylocke. Okay, so first, before we get into the Psylocke that we did get, let's talk about the Psylocke that we thought we would get. We can start with the original rendition of the character. Psylocke was originally a woman named Betty Braddock, a British telepath that fought mostly with her telepathic abilities. Like most old school psychics of comic books, she fought with no weapons and instead threw around purple energy beams and, told people to stop fighting. That is until she was captured by the Hand. The leader of the Hand kidnapped Betsy and had her switch bodies with his comatose lover, a woman known as Kwannon. When he did this, it mentally merged and body swapped the women, meaning while Braddock didn't have explicit total physical control of her body, she did have joint mental control. And while Betsy primarily was in control of Kwannon's body, there was still the underlying psyche of Kwannon that always existed within Betsy. This changed a lot about the way that Betsy approached being a superhero. She suddenly took on much more ninja-like traits as her body was trained so deeply, considering she was inhabiting the body of Kwannon by the Hand, that she essentially became an assassin. It's kind of confusing, so don't worry about it too much. Now, Kwannon, on the other hand, became Psylocke after Betsy Braddock was killed by a woman named Sapphire Styx. Once Betty died and her consciousness was obviously untethered from the mortal coil, Kwannon's psyche remained. And she is such a powerful telekinetic after joining minds essentially with Betsy that she telekinetically rebuilt Betsy's original body and returned her to it while taking the alias of Psylocke, returning to her original body. Betsy Braddock from this point forward becomes known as Captain or Lady Britain. And that's basically where things are right now with Kwannon. Obviously, she's done things since then. It's been a few years since that happened. But she is still currently Psylocke in most continuities of Marvel Comics, except for one. Well, technically, more than one, but only one that we care about. Psylocke on Earth TRN 1033 is a woman named Psy. Psy is a wandering adventurer looking for somewhere nice to stay every night. As she mentions in the game, she has a wolf named Logan. The two come across a village dealing with a Hulkamaru, which is basically just like a wild Hulk creature or Oni, like Psylocke says in the game. She works as a peace broker between the village and Hulkamaru, who has a child and is only stealing the villagers' food to feed them, because they need to team up and slay a venomized snake named Orochi. And I explain that entire story in one paragraph because that's where it ends. That's the whole story. And that's the only story that Psy has ever appeared in. It's not very long. It's the length of one comic issue, and it's kind of just a special thing that was done a few years back to give a fun little take on Psylocke, in a black and white feudal Japan monster hunting era. But what I think is important about it is it proves beyond almost anything that Marvel Rivals is pulling even more obscure versions of characters. Obviously, we have characters like Jeff the Land Shark and Squirrel Girl, people that no one's ever really heard of, but Marvel Rivals is not limiting themselves to that. They are also pulling out obscure versions of characters that you have heard of. And I think that's important to make a distinction of because it implies to me that they are not afraid to grab a lesser known version of a character so that they fit the story, which means they care about what the story is and where it's going, which is very exciting for me. Obviously, this is like my 16th video talking about the lore of this game. I care about it more than the average person. Most people just want to shoot things, which is totally fine, by the way. So not only might we get Paste Pot Pete, but we might get a variant of Paste Pot Pete that has only appeared like once, which is cool to me. I don't know. I think it's cool. But that's Psylocke's backstory, and Psylocke's backstory, and Psylocke's backstory. But what does she get into in Marvel Rivals? Well, she's actually a member of a trio of heroes who were kidnapped by the Collector. These are three characters we haven't really talked about yet here on the channel, but Mantis, Jeff the Landshark, and Psylocke were all taken by the Collector to serve as part of his weird ass Art Deco fetish of exotic beings. Psylocke was kidnapped amidst the chaos of the time stream entanglement, much like Mantis and Jeff, but the three managed to link up and escape on one of the Collector's starships. The Collector, however, is a selfish man and tries to chase them down, and he almost recaptures them until they glide through space past an Akanti. First introduced in Uncanny X-Men 156 by Chris Claremont, an Akanti is a billions years old space whale with a soul so pure that it physically cannot bring itself to harm anything. However, even as this creature wails in pain, one of the two psychics reach out and ask for help. It obliges, hiding the ship within its gaping maw and saving them from the Collector. Once inside, however, Psylocke recognizes that the pain it's going through is the same pain she felt in her last Oni hunt before being captured. A massive swarm of insect-like Oni. Mantis corrects her when she calls them demons. This is actually a race of parasites called the Brood. Now, I could explain the Brood, and perhaps there is an implication made by referencing the Brood here, but I'm not going to do that until I know for sure that I need to, because that would take forever. Using the power of empathy, the trio is able to push the Hive Mind Queen and all of the Brood from the innards of the Encanti, who is so grateful that it agrees to take them back to the intergalactic empire of Wakanda, which, by the way, confirms that this Mantis is from this universe. So despite not being with the Guardians of the Galaxy when they were hired by Shuri to go to Clintar, this is the Mantis that would be a part of their Guardians of the Galaxy. It is not a Mantis from 2024, but from 2099. And that is also the explanation for why Mantis has that super sick vibranium suit like the skin from the Battle Pass. It is because she was hired by Wakanda to investigate things, and part of that payment, presumably, was this new suit for Mantis. Also, as a personal sign of thanks, Jeff cleans the space whale's teeth, which I think is really cute. Anyway, on the way to Wakanda, Mantis receives a distress call from the Guardians of the Galaxy because they're currently stranded on Clintar. In a similar fashion, Psy receives a psychic calling that simply says, "To me, my X-Men." Jeff decides to stick with Psy as the three begin to split and part ways, and they try and begin finding out who exactly is calling out to her. And that is what I think is probably the most interesting thing that happens in her story. Because over the years in Marvel Comics, many people have used that classic call out to assemble the mutants. But in the midst of this time stream entanglement, who is calling out for the X-Men? Is it Charles Xavier? Is it Jean Grey? Is it Emma Frost? It could be Cyclops with the help of Cerebro. We have no idea who is calling out to Psylocke or why she finds the voice familiar. Because that's very interesting when you think about it. In the one appearance of this character in the comic books, there are no X-Men. She's not in the X-Men. She's just a wandering adventurer who kills Oni. That's it. There's no like home base that she goes back to, or even the concept of mutants and mutant kind is kind of foreign to Psylocke. There are a couple of lines with Magneto in game where she has to kind of realize why she has these powers because she doesn't know. So the fact that the voice seems familiar to her, despite being a voice that she's never heard before, makes me lean toward the idea that the voice calling out to her was Jean Grey. Because while she does not know any X-Men, and while she's never known any X-Men, Psylocke is very in tune with life. In her story, we see her acting as a bridge between humanity and Oni kind, because she believes that life should be protected. And the Phoenix Force, the extra dimensional entity that inhabits Jean Grey, is the personification of all life that has been, is, and ever will be across the multiverse. The Phoenix Force is the totality of all life across the multiverse. That is what the Phoenix Force is, and that's why the Phoenix Force can never die. So long as there is life in existence anywhere, the Phoenix Force exists. So, if it's the Phoenix Force, it doesn't matter that she's never technically met Jean Grey, because it's all the same thing. She would recognize the feeling of life, the presence of life. She would recognize that, especially with her being as powerful of a telepath and a telekinetic as she is. So that's going to be my guess, especially because we know that the Phoenix is explicitly aware of what's going on in the multiverse right now, because the Phoenix Force sends Adam Warlock in his cocoon to Clintar because he knows that he's got to go there. So she helps him out. So my guess is that it's going to be Jean Grey and the Phoenix Force that is calling out to Psylocke, which I then have to assume means that Jean Grey will be in the game sooner rather than later. Back on topic though. Similar to Iron Fist, I think there is a purposeful person doing this call out, and I don't think that NetEase is leaving the answer blank to be filled in later. Even if it isn't Jean Grey, and I'm wrong about that theory, I think NetEase knows who it is. It is a definitive person who is doing this call out. I think we just haven't gotten to who it is yet, or why they are assembling the X-Men. All that to say, man, we got a lot of content that is going to be added to this game in the future. You have to assume that the Collector is going to appear as a villain and maybe a map, right? I mean, 3 characters are directly tied to the Collector already. So you have to assume that that's going to be a thing, because Hydra only has like 3 characters that mention that, and they got a whole map. So the Collector's got to pop up at some point, right? The To Me My X-Men call out implies that someone mutant and psychic is going to be added rather soon. I think the launch roadmap for this game has like 2+ years of content via plot threads in it. Like, we still haven't gotten through everyone's season 0 stuff yet. This is the season 0 stuff still that we're still going through in season 1. And every time a new character joins, we get more lore. And even then, we still have 2 lore entries for everyone that haven't been unlocked yet as of season 1. There's so much meat on this bone, and I'm loving going through it. But that's all I have for you in this video. Thank you for listening to my rambling. If you like the video, and give us a subscribe. At the time of recording this, I'm real close to 100 subs, and that would be an awesome milestone to hit before January ends. Thank you all so much for the support on these videos. They are very fun to make. And until the next time I see you, drink some water, wash your hands, tell someone you love that you love them, and be good people.